Afro Tales podcast is a part of the Connected Podcast Network. Ahoy, my friends. Welcome aboard the Afro Tales podcast. I'm your storyteller, Aman Mazinga. Join me as we explore the tales that grew from the people of Indigenous and African descent in the Americas and the Caribbean. After, come and see me, chef, who will impart upon you a recipe for the story you have just heard. So with no further ado, let us set sail on this new age of exploration. When the paths vanished. It was a glorious day in Cuba, like any other. Sunshine spread its rays in every corner, making the plants bloom and grow. Coffee was ready for harvesting, fruits were ripe for picking, and people greeted each other with their usual warmth and optimism while setting off to work. That's when they noticed that the roads had closed. All of the paths across the island leading to other villages and the coast had suddenly vanished overnight. In their place grew a forest with thick, wild grass towering over 30 feet high. It was believed by the people that Iku, the Yoruba dark spirit of death, was blocking the paths. He was guarding the roads and making it impossible to pass. If you attempted to cross through the tightly knitted branches of grass, you would be taken by Iku and never seen again. Everyone, everywhere was trapped. People in the north of the country who had been visiting from the south could no longer return to their homes. Neighbors wanting to spend time with friends elsewhere could no longer see them. It was a complete lockdown across the island. Feelings of despair and isolation soon grew in the people's hearts. With thoughts of escaping and dominating their minds, those who did leave never returned. They were feared dead, captured by death. After a while, time ceased to exist. Celebrations and events felt weary and pointless without any future hope of change. Those from the coast that were trapped in the hills wept at the sound of the wind rustling through the trees, for it reminded them of the waves crashing in the sea. Those from the hillside, marooned by the coast, they were tormented by the sound of the sea breeze, for it carried memories of the forest sounds, gently whispering from the shore. Time passed, as time does with villages turning to decay. Gardens were no longer maintained, and buildings were rotting with disrepair. Most people had vanished along with the paths, but an old couple remained in the eastern village of Baracoa, surrounded by sweet-smelling cocoa trees and coffee plants. They nurtured the land and each other. Together, they had 20 children over the years, boys and girls, with wavy black hair and skin the color of cinnamon bark. They brought so much joy to their parents and other villagers who were old enough to remember a time when they were free to roam. But eventually, each child grew up and wanted to leave their home. They'd turn to their parents and say, "I want to know what is beyond the village. I need to find out for myself." No matter how much their parents begged them to stay, they eventually vanished into the haze of overgrown bush and were never seen again. The couple had finally resolved to live out their elderly years without the comfort of their children, when a truly magical thing happened. The old woman gave birth again, this time to identical twin boys, who they named Taewo and Kainde. The elders in the village called the boys Ibelles, sacred twins, and praised the African gods for their arrival. The powerful Orisha Obatala had breathed life into them. They all agreed, knowing that somehow the village had been blessed by their birth. Everyone felt a renewed sense of hope. The boys were doted upon by all the women in the village, who loved them as much as their own sons. Their supple bodies and hair were smoothed daily with coconut oil. They grew tall and strong, fed on a diet of viandes, of green plantain, cassava, and sweet potatoes. It was impossible to tell the twins apart. They were like two cocoa beans in a pod. If you looked closely, you could see that Taewo, the youngest, had eyes the color of dark coffee, while Kainde's eyes were a reddish shade of mahogany. A soft light shimmered from their smiling faces, which people felt was a divine mark that signaled the good fortune they would bring. Olorun, the sky Orisha who holds up the heavens, is protecting our Ibelles, they say whenever they pass by. Cheeky and mischievous, the boys played tricks on anyone who could not tell them apart. No, that was Taewo, who promised he'd help you mend the chair. I am Kainde. He giggled to his neighbors, cupping his hands over his mouth to cover rows of dazzling white teeth. One day, just like their siblings before them, Taewo and Kainde turned to their parents and said, "We want to know what is beyond this village. We need to go out and find out for ourselves." Their parents were devastated. "No, not my Ibelles. I cannot bear it," wailed their mother, beating the earth with her fists. Pain and sorrow threatened to seep through the village again until one of the elders spoke up. "Let us rejoice in the bravery and hold a fiesta to wish the twins good luck on their way." The women sashayed out in their long bata cabana dresses, layered with cherry red, sunrise orange, and white ruffled edges. They twirled and formed a circle. The twins stood in the middle, wearing their white cotton guayaberas and shorts. People danced up to them and placed lime green guava fruit in their deep pockets for their journey. Everyone waved along palm leaves in the air and sang, "Shine, Ibelles, shine. Let the paths open up for you. Shake, Ibelles, shake. Let the sun and moon guard you." Taewo and Kainde kissed their parents goodbye and walked into the forest. The thick grass parted for them, opening up a path so that they could easily walk their way. It then closed up right behind them so that no one else could get through. Paths vanished again. Protected by their shimmering light, the boys marched north for 7 days in the direction of the coast. Their plan was to walk along the edge of the island and see if any of the paths to other villages would open up for them. They strolled over rocky hills abundant with black walnut trees, stopping only to eat the rice and beans their mother had packed. At night, they slept under the stars, undisturbed by the scratching sound of critters who crept out to feed. On the 8th day, they reached the island coast and saw the vast sea for the first time in their lives. Their eyes stretched to the edge of the horizon, and they gasped in awe at the wonder at the sight. A light blue canvas of sky, dotted with white clouds, was mirrored in the crystal clear waters beneath it. Taewo turned to his brother and said, "Look, the sky is touching the water. There's no end to the sea. It goes on forever." They stood still and felt the sea breeze caress their faces and listened to the gentle shh, shh, shh of the waves rolling in. It was their first taste of freedom, and they wanted to run down the hill and dive into the water, but another sound interrupted their reverie. It sounded like 100 frogs croaking, followed by the sound of 100 horses shuddering down below. They looked down the hillside and saw a long stretch of golden sand littered with human bones. Skulls, arms, legs, and spines were piled on top of each other, surrounding the enormous body of a giant beast. The ghastly sounds were coming from him. He was slumped on his side, sleeping with his cavernous mouth wide open and snoring loudly. The foul stench of a rotting flesh drifted in their direction with each exhale. The giant was Okurri Boroku. He was the devil who had closed up all the roads, and his colossal body was stretched across the beach, blocking their way. Look at the size of that giant. His legs are thick, like gnarly tree trunks, and his enormous body could fill our whole house. Taewo stared in amazement. What a stink! Kainde pinched his nose to mask the smell. How will we get past him? He asked his brother, worried that their bones would end up on the pile with the others who had got this far. There's no way that they could cross to the other side of the island without waking him. Quick, don't let him see us, said Taewo, tugging his brother's arm. They crouched down in the grass and stared at this unsightly giant. His boulder-sized head was covered with red feathers hanging from a mass of tangled hair. One eye was closed and the other was bulging slightly open, revealing a black pupil that stared out blankly. Occasionally, he lifted his heavy arm and swatted away mosquitoes buzzing around his face. I will arouse him, said Taewo. You lie low and stay here. He marched down the hill, whistling as he went, expecting the giant to wake up and roar. But he didn't. He carried on sleeping and snoring heavily. "Wake up!" yelled Taewo. "You're in my way. I want to pass." He stood with his hands on his hips, staring straight at the devil. Okurri Boroku lazily lifted one eye and closed it again. It was clear to Taewo that he would not stir easily. Perhaps he has been sleeping for many years, he thought. He lifted his foot and kicked the giant's arm. "Get up!" yelled Taewo again. This time, he pulled the devil's feathers on his head and then jumped back to a safe distance. Okurri Boroku opened his eyes and saw the Ibelles standing before him. He stood up slowly, yawned loudly, and looked down at Taewo. "What are you doing here, boy? Do you know who I am?" he roared, revealing long, jagged teeth that flashed like spears in his mouth. "I would like to pass, please. You are in my way. Look at my teeth, boy. I am hungry. I have not had any people to eat for a long time." The giant looked him over from head to toe. Taewo stood his ground. He barely came up to the height of the giant's waist. "You need to let me pass. You need to let everyone pass." His voice remained firm as he stared defiantly into Okurri Boroku's dark eyes. The devil chuckled, admiring Taewo's bravery. "Perhaps I could have some fun with this boy before I devour him," he thought to himself. He turned to Taewo and offered him a challenge. "I like to dance, boy. It's been a long time since I have danced." He handed Taewo a tall, barrel-shaped makuta drum. "Play this drum, and if I like your rhythm, I will dance. Play, and we will see who grows tired first. If I stop, then you shall pass. But if you stop, then I shall eat you up, and your bones can join the others." Okurri Boroku threw back his head and howled in laughter. Taewo took the makuta drum and climbed up the hillside near where his brother was crouching. "I'll play from here while you dance." Then he slapped his open hand on the drum, one at a time, sending loud, soaring beats. Ka, 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 ta, ka, 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 ta. The devil lifted his feet and began to dance. He stamped in the sand and swung his long arms at the side of his waist. He shook his head from side to side, making the bright red feathers in his hair twist around. "I like it. Play, boy, play," growled the devil. Taewo increased his rhythm, hitting the drum with the edge of his hand, then slapping it with the other. The devil danced furiously, urging him to carry on. He danced for hours, swinging his hips and shrugging his shoulders in time with the beat. Taewo's hands continued drumming until they were stinging, red raw with pain. His brother lay on his tummy, watching through the tall blades of grass. He crawled along, inch by inch, until he was right beside Taewo's feet. He waited patiently for a sign to take over. The sun began to set, drawing a blanket of darkness across the sky. The devil twirled around, and when his back faced the boys, Kainde sprung up from the grass and Taewo dropped down. They exchanged places without the devil seeing. Kainde continued to play the drum with all his might. "Dance, devil, dance until you drop," he sang, slapping the drum even faster. Smoke poured out of Okurri Boroku's nostrils and ears as he spun around wildly. Birds of darkness joined in the dance, with night owls screeching and winged bats flapping around the devil's head. Taewo had crawled away into the hillside and was hiding behind a tree where he could rest and drink water without being seen. This went on for 2 days and 2 nights, with the Ibelles switching places while the devil danced to the beat of the drum. Finally, on the 3rd day, the sun reached the highest peak. His feet began to slow down. Sweat dripped down the side of his face, and venomous blood leaked from his eyes and ears. He wanted the drum to stop beating so he could stop dancing. His body ached and his strength ebbed away in the merciless heat. Still, the devil danced on into the night, and with his breath labored and his voice hoarse, he croaked, "Play, boy, play!" And when he uttered those last words, his body swayed backwards and he dropped dead into the sand. The Ibelles ran down the hillside and circled the body. "Your curse is lifted, Okurri Boroku. It is our time," they said. And they were right. With the devil now defeated, the paths opened up. The knotted blades of brush and grass drew back and roads appeared. The twins climbed up high into a silk cotton tree, also known as the Tree of Life and home to all spirits. They sat amidst its majestic branches, over 200 feet high above the ground, and called out to Orisha Obatala, "Restore the lives of the people taken by Okurri Boroku. Bring back their souls once more." Their voices rang out into the night sky, where their prayer was heard by the powerful spirit. In the valley below, the spirits took up their bones, lying scattered along the paths that had been closed by Okurri Boroku. They breathed life into their bodies and returned to their families and homes. The Ibelles had conquered the devil and brought love and light back to the island. To this day, Ibelles are seen as the guardians of the past. Their presence ensures that peace will always be maintained. The end. Wow, what a great story. This story comes from the Caribbean folk tales Stories from the Islands and Windrush Generation by Wendy Shearer. And if you've been listening to this for a while, you know I've done a few stories from her and was excited about this book coming out by her. She is an awesome author, and she makes these stories very readable for everybody, no matter where you're from. Okay? Which I love, because let's not get it wrong. Some writers, especially when writing in the vernacular or writing from a certain culture, forget that they need to put a basic English version out there also, so readers like me can read it and share, right? Or just even read it and understand. But I appreciate her for what she's doing, and I love her books. Now, into the story. The Ibelles, the identical twins, as you heard, are from the Yoruba pantheon of Orishas. The Orishas are the spirit beings and of the Yoruba pantheon. The Ibelles are in the Yoruba, the Ibelles in the Yoruba faith, or I should say, in their religious practice, are the children of Shango and Yamaja or Yamaya. Now, understand how they got from Nigeria, Africa, to Cuba was during the slave trade. And these individuals that were captured and enslaved brought their faith and brought their practices from home to the island of Cuba. Now, fast forward some time, things change a little bit, origins change a little bit. Even the gender of some of the Orisha have changed a little bit in Santeria. Now, instead of Ibelles, they're called Ibelles. They are still the sacred twins. They are still prayed to. They are still Orisha. They are still to be venerated and respected. Okay? Let's make sure we understand that. When hearing this story, when reading this story, when wanting to share this story with you, with my voice, I was online all day trying to make sure I said the names correctly, trying to be sure that I understood who I was talking about correctly so that I could respect them the way they need to be respected. I hope I did that. I hope the energy I gave this story and these characters and these Orisha are respectful to those that practice Santeria and those of the Cuban island of, I should say, of the island of Cuba. Cuba has a rich history, and these two twins, depending on where you hear the story, are either mischievous toward each other or mischievous toward other people. But I respect the fact that in this culture, in the Cuban culture, they are warriors against evil. Iku is with who I couldn't find in the Yoruba, I don't know why I keep saying it like that, I'm sorry. The Yoruba faith or religion or pantheon is definitely in the Cuban mythological tradition. And he is the embodiment of death, just the idea of death. He's not necessarily a grim reaper, but he is just the inevitability of death. Now, Okurri Boroku, I'm sorry, I could not find him anywhere. And I apologize for that. And if there's anybody that practices Santeria or anybody that's Cuban that is listening to this story and you've gotten this far, please send me some images, send me some where that I can go and find out more about this giant, because I really wanted just to see what he looked like. And I could not find that. And it's a shame because he sounds interesting. Like, he looks interesting, you know? But, so I apologize for if I said the name incorrectly. I couldn't find a lot of pronunciations for that name. And I apologize that I can't give you more details on him. But please go out and look for yourself and see if you can find something. And if you can, send it my way. Send it to AfroTalesCast@gmail.com. Or you can just go on the website and send me a message and I will get it. All right? But yeah, this story was awesome. What they did for the island, what they did for family and friends is what you want in a friend, right? Not somebody that's necessarily going to put their life on the line, but somebody that will fight for you when they don't have to. They didn't have to fight. They chose to. And that I applaud and that I respect. Anybody that will fight for somebody or fight for people they don't know, not because they have to, but because they want to see and they want people to have a better life. Well, that's all I have for you guys today. And I just want to say thank you for coming on this journey, as you always do. So we're here at this point. We know what comes next. Go see Chef. He has a wonderful Cuban recipe for you. And until we meet again, as always, have a blessed day.
Welcome, my friends, to the Galley. I am your chef, and today we have a wonderful recipe inspired by the story you have just heard. Today, we will be creating Ajiaco Cubano, or Cuban country-style stew. Now, what will you need for this here recipe? 2 tablespoons olive oil, 1 cup chopped onions, 1 cup green bell peppers, 4 cups garlic minced, half a teaspoon ground cumin, half a pound boneless pork shoulder cut into 1-inch cubes, half a pound flank steak cut into 1-inch pieces, 6 boneless chicken thighs, 1 medium boniato white sweet potato. It has white flesh. 1 medium yoko cassava root, 1 medium malanga toro root, 1 cup chopped butternut squash. Some people prefer pumpkin. I prefer squash, butternut. 8 ounces tomato sauce, 2 ears fresh sweet corn husked and cut into 2-inch pieces, 1 large green plantain, 1 large ripe plantain, that is the light green or yellowish skin, sometimes having black spots, fresh lime juice from 1 lime, 2 tablespoons, salt and pepper to taste. Now, how do we put this together? Easy. In a large pot, a very large pot, heat oil at medium heat. Saute your onions, green bell pepper, garlic, cumin, salt and pepper for 5 minutes until softened. Season all the meats with salt. Add them to the pot with enough water to cover them. About 10 cups should do. Simmer on medium to low for 1 hour until all the meats are tender. Remove the meat
from the pot with a slotted spoon and skim any fat off the top of the broth. Now, peel and cut the boniato, yoko, malanga, and squash into 1-inch cubes. Add them to the pot with broth and stir with the tomato sauce. Cover with a lid and simmer for 15 minutes at medium-high heat. After 15 minutes, add the corn, plantains, and fresh lime juice. Cover that and cook at medium-high heat for 20 to 25 minutes, or until all vegetables are tender. Now, you can add the meat back in and gently stir to combine everything together. Taste and adjust salt as needed. Serve with lime. And that is it, my friends. Now, go. Make this recipe yours, especially with the seasoning. And remember, my friends, the story and adventures of Taewo and Kainde, the Ibelles of Cuba. And as always, my friends, enjoy.
Thank you, my friends, for coming on this voyage. Thanks to Art by Chalet for the logo, episode, and shirt designs. You can get t-shirts and other items on tpublic.com. You can contact me on all socials at AfroTalesCast. That's AfroTales Cast. And email me at AfroTalesCast@gmail.com. You may also become a benefactor by simply sharing with any and everyone, giving a thumbs up, a 5-star rating and review in your podcast app of choice, or simply donating on Patreon or Ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com. So until we meet again, may your winds be fair and your seas follow.